Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, basically in order to explain this idea at all, we have to start off with a question, a bit of a mini debate, and this is hugely important. It's crucial to what we will be discussing today. But the question is whether or not Sanji would use the raid suit right now. And so I already know that a large number of you are going to hear this. You're going to say, what? Sanji has already used the raid suit, not once, but already twice. Of course he's going to use the raid suit if he needs to use the raid suit. There is no question here, JB. But I disagree, and I think that there might be some clues from the story which might hint at how and why Sanji might use the raid suit right now. And that time is not always. In fact, I do not think that Sanji is going to seriously use the raid suit again, at least not for a while, until his internal conflict about it is resolved. So let's talk about the two times Sanji has used the raid suit in Wano. And so the first example, which is relatively low-key, I think that a lot of people might have missed this, or it's just not really all that important, he used it to turn invisible and peep on Nami in the bathhouse. The second time that Sanji used the raid suit was obviously in the fight versus Page 1, the very first time that he used the raid suit in the story. And so that leads us into this panel in which Sanji and Law are discussing whether or not Sanji should actually help them. Law says, "What are you doing, Sangoro? Ignore them. It's all over if Drake and Hawkins show up." And Sanji says this, "Luckily enough, this guy doesn't know me. They won't identify me and I won't get hurt. I can take care of an idiot like this in no time. As long as they don't find out who I am, right?" And then from here, he proceeded to use the suit as a disguise and discovered that it also had powers of invisibility. So yeah, let's get to the theory. As I said earlier, he's used the raid suit twice, but I still think that he is not comfortable using the raid suit. What is it that I'm talking about, guys? The theory is that Sanji is only going to wear the raid suit if he believes that nobody would recognize him or the suit's connection to the Vinsmoke. As of the last chapter, this connection has been brought up not once, but twice. Sanji does not want to be associated with the Vinsmoke whatsoever. After he first puts on the suit in front of Law, Law says this, "What is he doing with that suit of all things? I recognize that. That's the number 3 member of the Army of Evil, Germa 66, Stealth Black. I don't care. Never call me that again." And then in the last chapter, another character ominously recognizes him. Drake says, "Come on then, are you Soba Mask? We got the intel about you, the Vinsmoke bloodline, eh?" Sanji says, "Don't you ever say that name again." Guys, Oda doesn't throw these things in here multiple times without thought. He is definitely going somewhere here with Sanji's unresolved issues with being a member of the Vinsmoke family. He is not one of them. He does not want to be one of them. He does not want to be associated with them. He does not want to be recognized as a Vinsmoke. So let's create the conspiracy theory. What are the two instances in which Sanji has used the raid suit? He's used it to turn himself invisible and peep on Nami. Nobody's going to recognize him or his connections with the Vinsmoke or the raid suit or anything related to that while he himself is invisible. That's not an issue. He can do that as much as he wants going forward. And in the other example, yes, he put on the raid suit and he didn't know at the time that it would turn him invisible, but he did think that he would not be recognized. And in addition to this, he probably thought that the suit would not be recognized either. So yeah, guys, Sanji wore the raid suit in this instance fighting against Page 1 in order to hide his identity as Sanji and the Alliance's plans and the Straw Hats' presence in Wano. But I think that that could be a convenient excuse. Despite what Sanji said during the fight of Page 1, that they're fighting up against Yonko and he needs to be as strong as humanly possible, I don't think that he puts on that raid suit if he thinks that he will be recognized for doing so. If he thinks that every time he puts on that raid suit, people are going to call him a Vinsmoke, the number 3 member Stealth Black of Germa 66. Again, guys, I just think that what Oda is doing here is very purposeful. When something happens twice, it becomes an observable trend. What Oda is telling us through the events in the story is that if Sanji continues to use the raid suit from now into the future of the story, it will be impossible for him to escape his heritage. I would wager a guess that it would actually be harder for Sanji to put on that raid suit today than it was originally when he did in the fight versus Page 1, because now he can't even delude himself that nobody will recognize him. Word is beginning to spread. So I think that the prudent question now, given that any time that Sanji wears the raid suit, it's an open door for somebody to bring up his connection, his relation to the Vinsmokes, what is it going to take for Sanji to actually swallow his pride rather than just saying that he's going to swallow his pride? And so guys, my first idea is that Sanji will here very soon lose in a significant battle. Or even if it's not Sanji specifically, the Straw Hats as a group, as a whole, or maybe even the Alliance as a whole, will lose in some kind of significant skirmish. This just goes along with my thoughts about Wano in general, but guys, I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I think that when we look back on this arc in the future, it's going to remind us, part of it is going to remind us a lot of Sabaody Archipelago. The fact of the matter is that yes, Sanji is not strong enough, but the same is true of all of the Straw Hats. Without a significant power-up, defeating Kaido right now is seemingly impossible. We've talked recently about the potential foreshadowing that a Straw Hat is actually captured and tortured. That gives you an idea of how I think that this arc is going to look. And if the arc really does go like this, and it's not all smiles and laughs, then I think that you should expect not only for Sanji, but basically the entire Straw Hat crew, all to grow from it. And in Sanji's case, the growth might be internal, just wearing the raid suit because he has to. There's no alternative. You either man up and wear the damn thing, or you lose. Which in the case of Sanji would be some serious character growth, because you'll notice that in a similar situation in the past, specifically in Enies Lobby, Sanji did not do this. He did not swallow his pride, and it could have cost the Straw Hats. I think that Oda is actually using this concept again, but flipping it ever so slightly, where Sanji chooses not to swallow his pride again, but this time the Straw Hats do not win. What I'm referring to is Sanji's fight against Khalifa. In that arc, Oda could have easily punished Sanji for his inability to fight women. They had an objective, they had something that they needed to accomplish, and Sanji just could not do it. He was going to lose before he hit a woman. Is Sanji going to lose before he uses the full capacity of that raid suit in front of somebody who knows what it is and who he is? But this time nobody else will be able to step in for him to accomplish what he needed to do. I think that Sanji needs more than the realization that he should wear the raid suit because they're facing Yonko and he needs to be stronger. I think that he actually needs to be punished for not using it. But yeah, guys, here's the fact of the matter. This is going to hit Sanji fans really hard, but this is just the fact of the matter. Since the time skip, we have not seen Sanji defeat anybody in a one-on-one fight. And if I've forgotten anybody, it's because they were too insignificant to remember. The two people that it suggested that Sanji actually defeated, we did not even get to see those battles in full. Sanji defeated Yonji, but we just saw the after result of that battle, and Sanji defeated Page 1, we assume, but the end of the battle was completely off-screened, and we didn't even get to see that moment of triumph when Sanji overcame him. Since the time skip, Sanji's only full fight in which there was a decided victor was Sanji versus Luffy, and Luffy was not even fighting back. Guys, this is absolutely crazy, especially when you consider this is over a 6 or 7 year time span in real life. I said this in Whole Cake Island, and I'm going to go ahead and say it again now. Oda is clearly waiting for something. He is biding his time setting up a particular moment because this is it's just ridiculous. There's no way this can be random. Sanji and Jinbei teamed up to defeat Waratsume in Fishman Island. In Punk Hazard, Sanji fought Virgo, broke his leg, and did not defeat him. In Dressrosa, Sanji fought Doflamingo and was defeated by him. In Zou, Sanji confronted Capone and again was defeated, if not physically, mentally. In Whole Cake Island, Sanji was again defeated mentally, at least initially, by the Vinsmokes and Big Mom. Again, there was that Yonji fight that we did not get to see at all. But the actual fight that we got, the actual fight that Oda did show us, was Sanji being defeated by all of his brothers. And even earlier than that, by his father. And the other clashes that Sanji had in Whole Cake Island versus Daifuku versus Oven did not have a winner or a loser, but it certainly didn't appear as though Sanji was going to dominate them. This leads us into Wano, where Sanji defeated Page 1, but we did not get to see the end of that fight or the actual results of it. And then Sanji fights Drake, which appears to be much more in line with the Daifuku and Oven fights from Whole Cake Island. I think that even the most hardcore Sanji fans has to realize that something is off here. That Sanji's portrayal since the time skip is it's baffling. And I'm not saying that Sanji was weaker than all these people, or it was impossible for him to defeat them. I actually think the exact opposite of this. I think that Sanji would have defeated the vast majority of these characters given the opportunity to, given an official 1v1 battle to the death in which Sanji could have grown from the fight. Oda's always throwing in things here or there to essentially nerf Sanji, or to give an opponent an opportunity to make Sanji look bad. But I mean, Oda is purposefully writing Sanji into situations in which it's impossible for him to win. And even if he does win, we don't get to see it. What is up with this? Why is he doing this? Does Oda all of a sudden hate Sanji? What exactly is he accomplishing? So to get to the point here, guys, I just wonder whether or not Oda is setting up Sanji's realization that he needs to do better. That since the time skip, he really hasn't done much at all in combat. And maybe this will help him really swallow his pride and put on that raid suit. Even after, as we speculated in this video, he gets cold feet about it. But at the same time as all of this, yes, I do think that Sanji needs to get stronger, but at the same time, is it alright for Oda to essentially torture Sanji like this? To me, it seems pretty cruel of Oda to force Sanji to wear the raid suit when it affects him like it clearly does and will continue to. Like, here's an analogy for you. I know it's not one for one, but this is kind of the idea. Yeah, you're stronger, but in order to acquire that strength, you had to kill 10,000 babies. It's like, is it worth? And even if it was worth, is this okay? So this leads into my other idea, guys. I think that Sanji's perception of the Vinsmoke has to change, so that Sanji doesn't feel bad for wearing the raid suit even if it makes him stronger. Or if his perception of the Vinsmoke do not change, he might take it upon himself to change what it means to be a Vinsmoke. And so this was actually a theory from way back in Whole Cake Island, but I think that there's enough clues in the story which make us wonder what the real history of the Vinsmoke actually is. Right now, all we know is hearsay, and comics that look suspiciously like propaganda. Obviously, we are supposed to read this comic as some sort of history, some sort of understanding of what happened in the past, but I think that at this point in time, we know enough about these Celestial Dragons and Cypher Pole that, and even Morgans as part of the news, that not everything that you would read might be accurate. These are the same people that at this point to us readers are well known for their subversion and their alteration of history. But yeah, in chapter 864 of One Piece, Judge says that he's seeking vengeance against the nations of the North Blue, as though they wronged him in the Vinsmoke. I know that this is outside of a lot of people's minds right now, but I think that it is completely plausible for the Vinsmoke family historically to have been a kind and compassionate empire. A kind and compassionate empire that was framed by the world government. This is just kind of a hard thing to prove at the moment. It's really just an idea. It's plausible, but you can really go deep into the rabbit hole if you want to create your own headcanon about the Vinsmoke's history. Like, for instance, why is Judge and the Vinsmoke the way that they are today? It's possibly as an overreaction to how the Vinsmokes of the past failed. Judge is dead set on removing the emotions from his children. He views them as a weakness because the Vinsmokes of the past were too emotional. They cared too much. They were too kind. And that led to their downfall. Using just an example, maybe the Celestial Dragons sent Cypher Pole into the North Blue to spread all sorts of lies about the Vinsmokes to set them up in various ways. And when the countries of the North Blue turned their attention onto the Vinsmokes to depose them, maybe the Vinsmokes didn't try to stop them, didn't fight against their own people. Just so that we are on the same page here, it is definitely within the motivation of the world government to try and sow chaos into the North Blue, because as far as we know, the North Blue and the Vinsmoke were the last remaining empire aside from the world government that existed in the world. The world government wants to expand, and the Vinsmokes were in the way of that either way. Whether they were good or evil, they were in the way. The way that I imagine this is really cool, but you guys will notice, right, that Law recognizes Sanji as Stealth Black, but Sanji has never worn that raid suit in his entire life. And in fact, the comics that the stories references also has all of the Vinsmoke children. The Vinsmoke's raid suits are famous outside of what the children have specifically done with them, because these comics existed well before they were even born or fighting. What this means is that the Vinsmokes have a tradition of essentially possessing fighters who wear these suits. So what this means, guys, is that 100, 200, 300, and however long the Vinsmoke have been alive, there's possibly been somebody who wore the Stealth Black costume. And if you imagine the Vinsmokes to have been historically good people, you could have possibly looked at them as living superheroes. Royals who took it upon themselves to fight for their people. And here's just another thing that I find to be really baffling and a bit of evidence towards this possibility that the Vinsmokes were good people. I don't think that the North Blue defeated them. You have to admit that it is a very strange situation. After the Vinsmokes were apparently defeated in the North Blue and all the countries rose up against them, a judge specifically mentioned that he wanted to get vengeance against them, so they wronged them in some way. The Vinsmokes were still alive and well and created their own country on the ocean. That is just not something that, in my opinion, losers would be allowed to do. If you are this evil and everyone's rising up against you, you're going to be imprisoned and captured and destroyed, obliterated. But I don't think that the North Blue could actually defeat the Vinsmoke. I don't think the Vinsmoke fought back. But yeah, guys, this huge tangent, which I do think is really cool, all leads me to the point that if the Vinsmoke are good, then Sanji could potentially learn this at some point during Wano, especially if Judge Vinsmoke is there and knows of the true history of his family. And that could completely change Sanji's perspective about what it means to be a Vinsmoke. Rather than wearing the suit out of necessity, Sanji can then wear the suit out of pride. And maybe more so than anybody, Sanji was the one representing and upholding the Vinsmoke's ideals. We touched on this earlier and I want to bring it up again. I mean, it appears as though, right, Sanji hasn't had any decisive victory since he ended the New World against anybody of consequence in a one-on-one fight. But at the same time, it's not just about fighting that would matter to the Vinsmokes or matter to Sanji. Sanji has also saved a lot of people in all of these fights that we say that he did not win in. But if you look from the lens that saving people is a win, then Sanji's had a lot of wins since the time skip. And maybe Oda will get around to formally communicating that. But yeah, guys, we've said a lot of things in this video, but if I'm just going to say one thing to summarize it, maybe like the point of the video, it's that the Vinsmoke plotline has not disappeared and is going to become relevant again in Wano. Something significant is going to happen, and I do believe that it strongly is going to revolve around, at least initially, Sanji wearing the raid suit. Because if Oda didn't make it clear at the end of Whole Cake Island, he's making it clear as recently as the last chapter, there is still things left unresolved that need to be resolved for Sanji to progress forward. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I had to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.